So Candice, how would you say, like, how do we play then with gender roles in a way that enriches our sex life?
Mm-hmm. I think we're having a good conversation in that direction because we're identifying what we've been taught.
Yeah.
And so I always start with that step for folks because we don't often interrogate it. We just kind of swam in that water for however long we've been alive. And now it's time to write it down, make it plain. Like, what have you been taught about what it means to be a real woman or a real man if we're talking about heteronormative, or even if we're talking about being a person that's trans or gender expansive, there are codes still. Like, this is what it means to be a good trans person or a good trans man. So writing down what you were taught, all the messages, and if you can find out, like if you can even go further and figure out who said it or where you heard it from, that gives you a bit more to play with. But even if you can't, these are the messages I've been socialized into. And then circling the ones that actually vibe for you, so that you know, like, there's nothing wrong with even these traditional ways of doing gender or expansive ways of doing gender if you consent into them. Like, if they really work for the way, like, your values, if they're really value congruent, basically. So writing down that, and then there may be some in the real man category that work well for you, even if you don't identify as a man. So figuring out, like, these are the attributes that have been ascribed to these specific genders. These are the attributes that are really congruent with who I am, who I know myself to be, that really work for me, that are value congruent. And then if you're partnered, you can talk about why they matter with your partner. And if not, you can journal about that or talk with friends or your therapist about, this is what I learned. These are the parts that really resonate for me. And these are the parts that I'm still adopting, even though they suck. Like, they just don't work for me at all. Figuring out how I get my needs met or realize my desires or experience my gender or my partnering with someone when they don't have the capacity to be that type of man or woman that I think they should have been. You know, how do I deal with that? Because that opening up is such a practice where if you're doing it with someone you're engaging with sexually, now you're seeing each other. You're also knowing what standards you've been holding each other to. And if you're in a good place, you get to forgive each other around that and connect in that way.
I love that. And I love the idea of holding it as something that is a continuous dialogue, because I think there's so many ways that a patriarchal structure also conditions us to hold things in a very linear way. Like, we have a problem with sex and we are going to solve it. And this is what it is. And because we've like laid out the guidelines and this is how we have sex and it's every single time and you're breaking the rules. And I think it's...
You're breaking the rules is it. Like, people hate you breaking the rules.
Right. Yeah. And it's, can it be alive? Can it be, you know, because I think there's so much like in the erotic realm of just like continuously being present with what is, and like the fluidity of allowing ourselves to shift and change. And even some of what you're saying about gender roles, I think like today, I feel like being in the more masculine energetic with my partner if I'm a core feminine woman, but that may not be the case tomorrow. I might want to be ravished by tomorrow. Can all of it be welcome? Right?
Can all of it be welcome? And can you check in with each other? So setting time points, whatever works for you and your schedule and your, you know, like, let's check in with each other, because if we're going to allow each other to evolve in this relationship, we've got to recognize that we're not going to be the same. We're not going to be static. So I'm not Candice as mom to a toddler boy is not Candice as pre-children. And so if within the confines of my marriage, that was the expectation, that my libido would be the same, that my energy would be the same, that my interest would be the same. Ooh, you got another thing coming, you know? Yeah. So let's talk about how it's evolving.
Yeah, because, you know, and I think that this is what so many couples struggle with, is that we are meant to continuously evolve and change. And the person that I married is not going to, or, you know, whatever my partnership model is not going to be the person that I'm with 10 years from now. And I think that if we stay in a partnership with someone for a very long time, we will be in partnership with several different people because we are meant to change. But I think we expect that children from age 0 to 18 are going to change, but somehow societally we think that stops at 18 and we're just like, nope, we're grown now. This is the person I'm going to be. And it's like, not even a little bit. Like I'm a completely different human being than I was in my 20s. But if we're in partnership with someone, we have to allow space for that. We have to say, no, like we're going to continue to change. How can we be present with the person that I'm with right now?
Somebody said, I don't know who said it, so if it was you, attribute it to yourself. But
oh, that was me. I'll just go ahead and take credit before you
they said that women partner expecting and hoping that their person will change, and men partner hoping that the person never changes. And I don't know that I don't want to essentialize gender in that way, but if that vibes for you, we might consider why we think that's the case.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it was me that said it when you heard it, but I do think that I speak to that quite often. And because I study masculine and feminine energetics quite a bit, and for the feminine, if we're speaking like a core feminine, that is expansion, that is aliveness, that is continuous free flowing energy that is not static. The masculine is structure. The masculine is, the containment, the solid base of what things are. And so I think a lot of times for core masculine men, what makes sense is, I know what I'm going to get. I married this woman. This should be what it is. Why does she keep asking me to evolve and read books with her? Like, I just want to sit here and be in the space of knowing what this is going to be. Just tell me how to do it and I'll do it. Right. And that makes sense. But for women, a lot of times it's just this space of no, we're in the constant state of expansion. And I am turned on by when my man is growing and, showing me something new that he is capable of. Whereas I think sometimes that can feel a little bit threatening to men. And some of that is the way that they're socialized to
I was just going to say
be something.
That I want to add on to what you're saying, Danae, and say too, I do think that the patriarchal structure that we live in has, because it's stripped so much of the feminine from the men in our lives, right? Or just in society. I do think that women, there is this message that women get that we are the emotional saviors of the men in our lives. So if men are the physical saviors, women are the emotional saviors. And there is an expectation that if I'm good enough for him and he marries me, that he's going to find himself. He's going to potentially expand. He's going to learn. He's going to become more emotional. He's going to somehow, quote unquote, fix all of these problems and these issues that the patriarchy has done to him. And obviously that one person cannot, undo all of generations and centuries of patriarchal messaging. But then I think what happens is you see these women then say oh, I'm not good enough, right? I'm not enough for you to want to change, because I think we put that on our own shoulders. I think we think that we are good enough to change our men. I don't know. Something I've been thinking about.
And don't let it be true as a therapist. You're this is what I was trained in, so I should definitely be able to change it.
Well, and I think that there's power in if I'm a man, and speaking in the context of the way that we're talking about it, can I be in the space of acceptance of someone else continuously being, evolving and changing, and that is in no way a representation of my ineptitude or that I am not enough. But also how do we as women take responsibility for I'm not actually seeing and loving the person in front of me if I'm seeing them in the context of the potential for who they could be if I can just get in here and fix some things and move it around. That's not love for that person. That's me with a projection of who I think that this person should be in the future that I'm falling in love with, right?
Ooh, all the things, ladies, all the things.
I mean, I love this conversation with you, Candice. I feel like we could keep you forever. I'm oh, that went really fast.
Right. I'm sitting here ooh, just checking my own stuff as we're talking about this.
I mean, that's real. I'm going to go back and listen to
ooh.
That's what happens, I guess, when you get three therapists on the line together.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
That mic drop moment. I got to go back and listen and dissect that a little bit.